Hi friends, it's Deanna Williston with Our Blooming Catholic Life, and I know it's Wednesday, but this isn't really a water Wednesday. It's kind of a watershed Wednesday for me. Yesterday I had just a great experience and I wanted to relate it to you. So starting back last year, I went out on a limb and I tried to do something that was very life-changing. If you follow the channel, you know what it is. And it didn't go the way I expected it at all. From the outside, I think everybody saw that I had faced my fears and I was accomplishing this great thing that they all wanted for me. But I knew that something was wrong, and mainly because when I went to the office to try and get this thing done, a person screamed at me for like 20 minutes, a lot. And I knew there was a problem with the paperwork, but I couldn't figure out what it was. And all the person would do was scream at me that if I wanted a manager, they could do it, but it was going to take months to get it done. And she just kept screaming. So for the past year, full year, I have just imagined the most horrific possibilities that could be out there. In the beginning, when I came home that night for a week or two, I could barely sleep. I started having nightmares, started having flashbacks to some past trauma, and there were some old wounds reopened, and was I going to have to deal with someone from my past that I suspected was the root cause of this problem. And then the other night, I scheduled an appointment to go back in and just try and move past it, right? And so it's the night before the appointment, and I was just like, I was over it, right? Over it. This just needed addressed, whether or not, however it moved forward, I needed to be done with it, kind of. And so I just laid it out in the line in prayer. And I just, God, whatever. Just let me know what you want and I'll run with it, kind of thing. And I'm either going to finish this process or I'm going to just do my best and walk away from it and figure out how to go move forward, what that would look like for me without this thing. And in it, I really invoked John Bradburne to help me both to be brave and to be vulnerable and to be open to whatever path God is setting before me. That's something I really think John had, that he never knew exactly what his end goal was, right? But he had an experience and he knew God had something there for him. And sometimes people would throw challenging stuff at him and he's like, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. But he would always figure it out through the grace of God. And I just think it's really shows how God sends us the friends and the opportunities we need. So like, I've been trying to set up a studio for these videos, and I was gonna, it's gonna be upstairs and it's gonna have in the background, it's gonna have my degrees. And originally when I very first started doing these videos, I thought having my degrees up behind me, because I'd seen other people do that, gave me some credibility, right? But I've realized as time goes on, then I didn't want them there at all, because then it felt fake. And I don't know why it felt fake, because I did earn those degrees, but it just kind of felt wrong. But now I want those degrees up there to show how God can work with anyone, even wild little girls who were usually climbing trees or digging in the dirt for worms, and who grew up on a median strip next to the railroad. Like, it doesn't matter. God can work with anyone. How did this little girl who grew up on a median strip end up with 2 master's degrees? I know a lot of people have a lot more education than me, but for me to think about that, I grew up so humbly, and to end up with 2 master's degrees does sound pretty amazing. And how did I even get them? Because I have a master's in education, almost completely in online education. It's confusing. But I've all but one classes I would need to complete the online education degree, and then they didn't offer that class again. That's how it always happens for me, it seems. But I'm a homeschool tutor. Like, I wasn't even teaching in the public schools. And honestly, when I wanted to take more classes, I won't say education departments were tripping over themselves to get me in, because they're like, you're not a licensed teacher. Like, somehow nobody can take education classes but licensed teachers. That doesn't even make sense. Like, education methodology applies to so many fields besides public schools. Like, it was so weird. And so there was one school that when I called and asked them, they were like, instead of hanging up the phone, they said, good question. And they got back to me and they made me jump through some additional hoops, but I did get that master's in education. And then when I got done with that, it was kind of funny because my time as a homeschool tutor changed. I didn't really have as many classes. There was something hinky going on with the insurance, and I couldn't get a straight answer from the co-op I was with, and so I was ready to walk away from that and just do private tutoring out of my house where I knew what my insurance was and what my liability would be, and I felt very safe. For a science tutor, I'll tell you, insurance is very important. Accidents can happen in conducting experiments, and so you really want that to be assured that your students would be able to get the care they needed if anything were to happen. Let's see. Oh, right. I got done with the degree, and that's when I found out about secular Franciscans, and I really was attracted to that. And you can watch videos on that. I'll try and point here. I will link that later so you can see some of my Franciscan journey videos. There is more than one now, so I'm only going to link one, but there's definitely more than one at this point in my journey. And so I started down that path, and then suddenly Women of Grace was offering an online Master's of Pastoral Studies with a certificate in Catholic women's leadership. I was blown away because I'd ended up doing my master's in education. My final project, my thesis, was on Women of Grace, adapting an adult education program for women and adapting it for teenage girls. And so this is what I'd been studying accidentally, right? And I was like, oh, this is going to be the fulfillment. This is really going to take me deeper into that knowledge and really build on that research that I was able to start. And so I was super excited. And I get done with that degree, and now what? I have no connections. Like, my professors are saying, go on for a PhD, or write books. Different professors are saying different things. And, like, that's not really in my realm of experience, right? I don't have contacts who are publishers. There's nobody knocking at the door. There's no PhD program, like, fighting over me again. That's not a thing. I don't even know. Like, I thought about it and I don't know how to do it, and then I realized the second master's was the right way to go to even pursue that path, but I need a bit more experience underneath me before I would go for the PhD, is what I realized, that I would really need that more. And honestly, my husband would prefer I make a smidge of money. Haven't figured that one out yet either, but I'm working on it. So I had to come up with a new plan, and my new plan involved getting literally a new planner, which I found on clearance at Walmart. And when I found that planner, it revolutionized how I thought about planning and organizing my day. And so I just, wham, went and got my stuff and sat down and started to make a video, which is so funny because I learned how to do that in my first master's program. And before I knew it, I was making more and more videos, and then the videos weren't really planner, they were pastoral studies, which was the second master. So I somehow combined the first and second master's degrees, right? And then stuff from secular Franciscans started to trickle in. And when I was researching one of those Franciscan videos, I found John Bradburne. And finding a servant of God, John Bradburne, led me to a whole host of new things. I went to put something about him in our newsletter, and so I had to ask permission to use a photo, and somehow asking for permission to use that photo ended up, I made all these great friends suddenly around the world, and now I'm helping to edit the YouTube videos, getting ready for John Bradburne's centenary, his 100th birthday this summer, June 14th. Very exciting. And I'm not doing a lot of editing. I'm mainly editing the data, making sure there's subtitles. I'm not doing anything, rocket sciencey, but it's still a small, tiny contribution. And I'm really, somebody, the Memorial Society would be like, can you do this too? Can you add this? And like, I'd never learned how to do subtitles. So suddenly I had to learn how to do subtitles. Can you do this? And I'm like, no. Well, let me see. And so I'm refreshing my skills, upping my skills, continually learning new things through this process. And then I realized the other day that there's a mistake on the Wikipedia page, and I was like, oh right, when I did that first master's, I did learn how to be a Wikipedia editor, and my credentials still work. I went in, I was able to fix that mistake and just tweak a few things, add some new books that came out. So now I'm helping out with the Wikipedia page. And it's just funny how God leads you on these funny little paths. You do something because you really feel led to do it, and you may not know why for a long time. It's like when we were talking with Victoria Brandt and asked her about her patron saint, And that was Saint Cecilia, and she picked her at the time because she didn't have a good practice routine or anything yet, right? And now Veronica is teaching the world how to chant the little office of the Blessed Virgin Mary and other great devotions. And so sometimes when you pick a saint, we all joke that oftentimes the saint picks you, and not to freak out anybody getting ready for confirmation out there, but sometimes it's like, what's the expression? Dare great things. Sometimes you're almost challenging or bringing it on yourself. You're like, I picked this saint because I really admire them, and then suddenly you find that self, somewhere down the road, you're in that situation or a similar situation, but that saint is there with you to help guide you, right? And I'd like to think they're praying for us. So I did turn with my big ask the other night. I had turned to John Bradburne, and I didn't even try that old, I'm doing favors for you. Can you throw a few favors my way? I didn't try that. I just knew that he would completely understand the predicament I was in, and that maybe he'd be willing to pray for me. And yeah, I mean, that's, you never know. So John Bradburne, to me, my connections with him are manyfold. Not just that he's a secular Franciscan and he's worked with lepers, and that he lived, they call him the strange vagabond of God, and he liked music, but he played kind of unconventionally. And there's a lot of things that speak to me. His birthday is also, I don't know what year my grandpa was born, but he was born on June 14th. So he has my grandpa's birthday at least. And it's just kind of exciting sometimes to see the different connections in there. And John Bradburne honestly feels like a older brother to me. I have many older brothers. So John Bradburne just feels like one of my older brothers that I know I could turn to if I really needed anything. I know I could turn to any of them. And so it's so wonderful to have that advocate. And in life, you just never know. And sometimes you do have to make yourself vulnerable and trust and just really go with the Spirit. And again, I'm going to disclaimer this. Of course, you should have a spiritual director. When I was going for these master programs, I did talk to a priest about them. I didn't have a spiritual director, but I was able to go and talk to a priest about both of them and just get his opinion and get him to write me not just a letter of recommendation for the school, but even before that, like, do you think this is a good idea? And so, yeah, it's kind of an exciting time. And I think we need this lesson. Secular Franciscans, it's in our rule that we have daily conversion. And this is just one of my daily conversions. And I think I've done it over and over in time, and it resolves an issue where you completely make yourself vulnerable to God, completely trusting Him, and something really mystical and amazing happens. And it's usually something that wasn't even like I had thought. There were two choices on the table, and there's always like this third one that comes out of nowhere, and it's the one. And it's just amazing. So I just wanted to encourage you, friends, to get out there. Really go back. If you haven't looked at your confirmation saint in a while, maybe go out and make friends with them. Maybe go out and make friends with some other saints. There's some lovely ones. I tell you, today's saint, I know it's Blessed, I'll say Lucendo, but I could never say his name right. And in fact, history has lost the actual spelling of his name, but today is actually the feast day of the very first secular Franciscan. So it is an exciting feast day. And we'll say, Blessed Saint Lucendo, first secular Franciscan. Add that in case he doesn't recognize the name, right? Please pray for us all out there that we may live the gospel life in the spirit of Saint Francis. God bless, friends. Bye.